And if yes, what was the intention to, to set this great, book here?
Well, everything about the book was very intentional. It's a book in which a black man saves the world. We think, we're not sure. And I think, I was tired of watching movies where when aliens when they invade Earth, they always go to America. Like, why? They don't bother about other places. Many years ago, before I was born, Hollywood made a movie about the future, right? And I was watching a documentary where a black actor, talked about it and said, no, it was Richard Pryor, said, with his very beautiful, flowery language, he said, look, I watched this movie, about several years into the future, and there was no black people there. That this, MFs don't see us in the future. And I think it's important that we start telling stories that centers us. So rather than fighting against, whiteness centering itself, which often is not an individual act by anybody, it's just what the world has come to accept, we might as well start, owning spaces and centering ourselves and having black women save the world, having otherly able people save the world, like, Tondai's books, be magicians and do awesome things. So it was very intentional for it to be in Lagos because, as we all know, Lagos is the most important capital city in Africa. So I thought, I want to do this for African people and black people everywhere. And we all know that as black people everywhere, we all look up to Africans in Nigeria. So I thought I would make it about a Lagosian, an IT nerd, who's normal in every way, but also supernatural in certain ways. So that was intentional.
You, Khadija, your book is set in Mombasa. Is there significance to the setting of House of Rust?
What he said. But yeah, he put it really beautifully. I think not so much as creating a narrative that's, against, not so much creating a narrative that's like against or opposing the current narrative, but just to be able to write stories that are from your home, from your place. If you don't do it, other people are gonna do it for you, and then you get angry, and then now what? So I wouldn't say it's so much about owning the narrative, because I don't see myself as like the voice of my community. I'm just telling a story like anyone would. And I think the wealth of a community can be seen in how many kinds of stories we can have from that community, and if I can add to that, I think that's very important to me. And I also think when I was writing these stories, especially as a first project, where they were not set at home, where they were set in places I didn't necessarily have any real or sincere attachment to, you could feel the hollowness, of the soullessness of the story. So I think I really needed, for a first project, to actually be from home in order to mean anything to me. Yeah.
I think just a follow-up to you, Khadija, on the House of Rest was you centered women a lot. And Aisha is younger, but you do a three-generation, her mom and her baba. So I want to know why was it so critical, maybe for you in your first project, to center these three generations of women in the story in such a manner, in such an emotive manner?
I don't know if that was necessarily intentional. But women
I don't know if you still hold the same views, and I just want to know, in terms of this, the beautiful side of the moon, were you excited to be sort of contributing to this body of work that is speculative and not really linear, in the way that we are used to African or books on the continents to be written from?
I'm not sure what publication it is, but often, things are taken out of context. So I do know that I hold the view that for a very long time, A lot of publishers, especially Western publishers, wanted literary fiction from Africans for God knows what reasons, but we're very good at it. You know, just look in this room, look at all the books that have been featured. We are excellent at writing literary fiction. That said, we're also amazingly good at writing sci-fi. Before I was born, there was sci-fi in Africa. You know, magical realism, before I was born, we were writing that. The book itself was partly inspired by Amos Tutuola's The Palm Wine Drinkard, you know, and I think it's one of the most important works of fiction ever done, right? So that might be what that is about. So I wasn't saying, you know, anything very interesting about literary fiction. In terms of contributing to the body of work, I'll accept it, even though my driving reason for writing it was to make money, so.
Okay, and I think just the other thing that I see as a commonality between both of your books is just the, I don't know, you'll give me the words, the self-homegoing, where both, I mean, Mr. Magic finally gets to fully know who he is, who his mother is, because I also found that, you know, I was so like, oh, okay. Also on your side, Khadija, Aisha sort of goes home. She knows who she is, and she wants to pursue that side of herself, which talks to also to, I mean, the festival sort of theme for this year, homegoing. Why did you see the need for these characters to get to that point of going home and fully exploring who they are, because they were just normal people at the beginning, but they had this super magical powers?
I think for me, a lot of the stories that I had experienced where the individual comes into themselves, the individual is always against the community, always rejected by the community. Or there needs to be a separation between, or the individual and the community themselves are kind of in conflict, that there's no space where, or my experience of that in terms of story, there are very rarely spaces where community can serve the individual and the individual can serve the community without losing that individuality. So it was important for me that Aisha goes through this change, but that she comes back and she works that change out with her community, and that she is not rejected and she does not reject the community. Throughout this journey, she is finally able to learn how to accept the love the community gives her. And the community also learns to accept who she is as a person. So that was, I didn't write a story to empower people, but I find that feeling empowering, to be able to go out. I leave Kenya, or I leave wherever I come from, and I still belong to my people. It doesn't mean I belong any less to myself.
Yes, so Osarati also goes on a journey, is a normal IT guy in Lagos until Brother Moses, this man with a funky afro, comes into his life, you know, first by sending him in a letter, inviting him.
Yeah, I'm reading it. It's very exciting.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I'll tell my dealer. So what inspired the story? I think it has a lot to do with the flavors of incense I surrounded myself with when I was writing it, the chemicals that got into my body while I was writing it.
What chemicals?
Oh yeah, well, for example, I decided to be very clean when I wrote it, so I decided to only have fruits, fermented grapes to be precise. And I also learned that evil spirits do not like smoke. So I decided that I'm not just going to fumigate around me to get evil spirits away so I can tell the stories truthfully. I decided that I also needed to cleanse my insides. So, tobacco is not good for you. Please don't smoke cigarettes, it'll give you cancer. But I found alternatives to tobacco that you can inhale. And, um, and my essential worker during the lockdown, I do a joke, I call him my dealer. I told him what I was trying to achieve, and he told me the particular strains of the herbs that I needed to consume, and that really shows in the book. Yeah.
So the herbs also give you writing superpowers?
No, I don't think so. You know, I was watching. I was there with Nedi Okarafo watching. You know, and she talked about how. I think the summation of it is what we sometimes think of as superpowers that we discover through medication, through things that alter our consciousness. I took from that the superpowers are within us, you know, so I was flying when I was writing it. And some people might say, well, you were high. Yeah, I was high, above the ground, you know, and you will really see it in the writing.
No, I did. I mean, you're operating from a high level, so I believe that.
And because they tell you, it's a very hackneyed thing to say. They say, write about what you know. And I know Lagos. But after I did the right preparations to be able to really get into the world of this story, I got to know the moon, which is why it's called the beautiful side of the moon. You know, astral travel is a thing. I went to other dimensions. I met people like Titus. A story was invoked today by Nedi Okarafo. You can get that I'm trying to claim proximity to her work. I think I'm sat on the very chair she was sat on, but anyway, that's besides the point. She talked about, you know, this folklore about people who get into a cab and then they'll see someone drive in it, and then after a while it'll turn into a cat, and they'll be like, oh no. That happened to me in university. You know,